Yeah, hi Nelson. So thank you for having me. And I'm supposed to be your guest, but I'm also your interviewer. Well, like I told you, I need us to have some real conversations. We're people of faith, and in the spirit of business as mission, we had the first part recording where we discussed purpose and you know things around that. But Nelson, there are some pressing conversations. This is 2024. Today is New Year Day. It's a New Year broadcast. Listen to the president's speech. I heard everything. Sometimes when I sit down on my seat, like I told you that day, I feel like we can do a lot more to fix Nigeria. We can do a lot more to fix our society, and so on and so forth. I feel helpless. I mean, over almost 200 people were massacred in Plateau State. It's a mess, And but where I'm really going is, where do we go from here, right? I have a theory, and I wanted to run it by you. Nelson, why is it taking so long? And I've asked you this question severally. I think you tried to answer it, but now answer it publicly. Um, Nelson, why is it taking so long for our light and our salt to permeate into the society? What do you think the problem is? What's the issue? I mean, I'm not being critical, but we have a lot of faith and a lot of prayer and a lot of, but, but why is it taking so long? Or do you just think, I mean, what are your theories? What do you think?
That's a good question. I must say that we can't really put a specific timeline as to when we hope to get Uhuru. But another way to ask that question is to say, are we being salty? Let's say I'm salty, but I've not achieved the end goal. Then I can at least pat myself in the back that at least I'm achieving something. So are we exhibiting the saltiness that we ought to exhibit? Because if we aren't, we will never reach the goal. But if we are, the chances are that maybe sooner than later we can get there, or maybe when we have critical mass, we would. So I think that let's even interrogate if we are salty. And I think that to a large extent, very few people are. We still need a critical mass of awareness that we actually have a role to play. Many people don't understand this concept of business as mission, this concept of being in the marketplace, being in governance as a missional activity worthy of all spiritual, acknowledgement. So when we don't even have that, consensus that this is missionary, we're not even there yet. So I don't think we are having the right conversation. How many people do you know are in the marketplace, in business, in politics, in governance, from a missional perspective, with the mindset that God sent me? So that's the issue to me.
Okay. So Nelson, let's break this conversation to two.
Okay.
The first part is the one you discussed, which is that there's a mindset, there's a broader mindset of missionary, and missionary means you're mission driven. Well, at least in this context. I'm not even talking about preaching gospel. I'm talking literally, you're in the marketplace, you run a commercial business, but your disposition is business as mission.
Let's even define it. When we say mission now, a lot of times we think that God doesn't care about the social needs of people. I think there's nothing further from that. Jesus Christ couldn't have been more explicit when he said, when he returns, he asks that I was in prison, you visited me. I was hungry, you fed me. He could have used so many other adjectives to qualify what the faith meant, but he chose to use social care, social concerns.
I've been forgetting.
Exactly. Because he said it. It was just kind of said
I
it.
know the scripture. Like, I've thought about it.
But we are wondering, why did he use that? And when he came here,
It
was not a problem. It wasn't a problem. Yes. And then when he came here, he was healing the sick. What does coming to save us from our sins has to do with healing the sick?
So if I run a hospital,
You are part and parcel of the ministry. So why did he do that? Because you cannot say you want to save somebody's soul and let him die of hunger. But James said, what kind of faith is that? So there's a delusion that thinks that spirituality is outside of the humanity of the man. You understand? There is a huge delusion, and we miss God completely, in my own opinion, when we miss that component. God cares about man and not spirit man, spirit, soul, and body. Thank you.
Okay, interesting. So in terms of thank you for that, Nelson. Now let me put my own theory forward, right? And Nelson, I've been talking about this competency matter, and I know you very well. We work together. You're a very smart guy. In fact, when I tell people that he's more intelligent than me, I may have my own razzmatazz, my own charisma. But no, that's a joke. But it's good. It's Bible says consider others, and this is even not consider. It's true. Others, better than you. But the thing is, Nelson, I have a theory, right? I don't think I don't want to use believers because people watch this. They don't know that they don't know. One, there's a game of strategy that the whole chess game of life and the way society, children of this world are wiser than children of this of light, and so on and so forth. There is an understanding that we don't have, that we lack, that we need to quickly switch on into. So I feel like maybe we can use this opportunity to explain to people how important they have to be, why they have to be strategic and intelligent. I was giving an example for the recording. I was talking about Daniel. Daniel worked for Nebuchadnezzar. Now, I don't know, my context may be wrong, because history is richer than what is in the Bible. But let's use my basic level, at whatever ignorance level I am. Nebuchadnezzar was not a nice guy. If I told some of you here now to come and work for some people in politics or in government, they're going to say no. But most times when decisions are being made in the room, we're not there. You understand? So these are some of the issues. But where I'm really going, and this is something I've been talking for a long time, and I for some reason I've even stopped talking, is that you cannot, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to put it bluntly, Nelson. Our spirituality also doesn't translate to our excellence. So we have not hit the dimensions of excellence. And I'm not talking as if I have overcome myself. That warrants the kind of Joseph, Daniel spirit. They even had David. You know my theory on this, but what do you think, Nelson? Do you think, how do we get there? When do we get there? For me, I think it's important. It was a time I was taking it too hard that you even cautioned me and said, "Oh, God, be careful. This is not the gospel." And I agree. I listened. It's not the gospel. It doesn't replace the gospel. But it's a message that we must balance. And a few men of God have taken it over and beyond. Nelson, you can't get reliable people to do anything great for you. There's a level of excellence that even reflects the nature of God. And when I start talking like this, people think excellence is, they start thinking about their church, their fine stage, and their, no disrespect to that. They're important. But that's not the excellence. That one is great and is important. And I believe in that. But that's not the one I'm talking about. The excellence where,
being a person of
there's only one person that understands inflation, like this guy. When you sit down and you cook your theories on inflation, you now go and test it. And now back, then you say, this one understands underemployment. This one understands employment. Issues that affect us. Someone understands healthcare, finance. They exist though, but they're alone. They're lone rangers. They're under pressure. I came and met you some days ago. You were working. Christmas Eve, Christmas holiday. You're working.
Because now
you couldn't delegate.
Yeah, Tarfa, let me talk about intellectual excellence.
Yes.
As different from spiritual excellence, as different from emotional excellence, as different from communication excellence. These are perhaps different domains. I'm not sure my categorization is fluid, but there are different domains of excellence that one could have, and we're kind of limited to the intellectual space. Now, I would want to say that what you are simply saying, if I understand correctly, is that isn't there sufficient space where our spiritual endowment should translate to intellectual excellence?
Know. That's one. Answer that. Then secondly, clear recommendations for believers watching.
Okay.
And because I feel like I'm a lone voice in the desert trying that guys, how far?
I see. What I think
this is how to.
What I think is that excellence is a product of practice.
Okay.
And practice is a function of the height of your course, how big your course is. So if you check the life of David fought and killed the lion and killed the bear because he had a cause. You know, it wasn't simply because he was strong. It was his reason, his why, that compelled him to become a warrior. So most times we look at natural endowment alone to say this guy is intelligent. That's why he's talking like this. But maybe he is intelligent, quite all right, but he also had a why, which was why he went to work and got better. So I have seen in the course of my work that a lot of young people have the basic capacity. They have the basic intelligence. They have the basic exposure. But they don't have a cause. They don't have a why. So because there's no why, we focus on taking care of me, myself, and I. The challenge is that me, myself, and I is not sufficient motivation to drive you to do the things you need to do to be the best person you have to be. So until your why, your cause is bigger than you, yourself, and yours, you will never get better. So I think a lot of people have a very small why, a very small cause. And that, to me, might be something that has to do with calling and not just maybe their exposure. And then maybe calling can be not just the fact that God called you, but you are in a place where the missional calling is present. So, for example, if you are raised in a family where there's a sense of understanding of some of these things, you will flow in it. You know? So, it is possible that, one, people are in places, locations, ministries, churches, where this kind of teaching and atmosphere does not exist. So they don't even respond to those inner giftings. That's number one. Number two, they may be, but because they have not intentionally expanded their hearts to, consider bigger issues. Because you're talking about Nigeria. Many people are talking about their family. You're concerned about Nigeria, how the nation will get better. People are concerned about, oh, my family, I need to Japan, I need to do this, I need to do that. And can you really blame them? So the question is what David asked his brother, is there not a cause? So to the measure of a man is a measure of his causes. And that would tell you how he's exerting. And these things are, you get better with time. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Nelson, that's a good one. You tried. I like that. You spoke to one group of people. Let me bring you home, Nelson. I know, forgive my style. Very rash, even though short small. I'm not appraising myself.
I guess.
Nelson,
Yeah.
Joseph, one man, Egypt. David, one man, Israel. Daniel, boys, all of them. Nelson, me and you, we're enough.
Yeah.
How far?
Okay.
Now, why can you and I? I'm even putting blame on myself first, but Nelson, we have over 50,000. I know you've answered me. Churches. We have. I'm trying to ask questions here. Okay, how far? What would we? You may not have the answers. You're not the father.
Yeah, sure.
But okay, it's an emergency. We can't continue like this. Now, so what do we supposed to be for? And so I'm talking to those guys that pray. How far? And no mockery. I pray too. Don't get me wrong. Those guys, they're hearing me. How far?
Okay, what I was
we have a dying nation here.
What I would say is that if you ask me, this is my own opinion, just to be frank. I think that sometimes we might not appreciate the role that the salt maybe has played so far, even in our continued existence as a nation. We take, for example, we have some killings in Plateau the other day. In other climes, you should talk about retaliation by now. Some about massive retaliation. The very fact that the nation is not on fire, despite some of this.
It's because it's Plateau.
Yeah,
ordinary Lowgate.
I'm just giving an example. The nation is not on fire might be because of the salt in terms of emotional tolerance that people might have to evil, which is a product of their belief system. So, in as much as we have not excelled in the intellectual capacity and application of that wisdom to solve a national problem, the emotional tolerance we have had to evil has in a way preserved us, because we could have gone all right, full throttle warfare by now. Nigeria has exhibited every measure of a failed nation. Every measure of a failed nation. The only reason why people are not out with arms on the streets is simply because they have a sense of God in them. But now we are saying that how else can that sense of God be marshaled beyond tolerating the evil? Do you understand? So I want to first of all acknowledge the fact that that sense of God in us has preserved us from going to an all right, all out, all man for himself scenario. You understand? So, for example, our teachers are still showing up for work and teaching. Our doctors are still showing up in the hospitals. Our policemen are still showing up, as bad as the situations are. Soldiers are still dying on the war front for this nation on a daily basis. We must applaud that is the Spirit of God in them that has kept us. Because think about it, if you think about it critically as a soldier, would you die for this country? Or as a policeman? Or as a nurse, as a doctor? So the fact that we still have that semblance of normalcy is a gift of God. But we're not asking, is this the best we can do? Obviously, no. But let's applaud that something is already being done. But we can do a lot better. And that a lot better should come from a place of knowing that we can do something. And we have the capacity to do something. Then in that case, we can mobilize resources to do something. Thank you.
Amazing. All right, Nelson. So thank you again. Welcome back. Now, what I was trying to say is, and I think you're getting me now, is this is my objective. I'm looking at all that is going on around us, and I'm losing patience, and I'm saying, and I want to raise a consciousness and an awareness to people to rise up to a level of problem solving, excellence, and so on and so forth. Even if you are called to ministry, right? Whatever to start a church or whatever is close to that. Well, most of them have done well. In fact, one of the things that has done well in this country is two things: church and the entertainment industry. I don't know why and how. Maybe there are other things, but those two have done well. But where I'm going, Nelson, is that, as you were saying offline, that people need to recognize their calling and stay in that calling.
Yeah.
That kind of punctured my balloon and made me calm down. That maybe there are few of my type. We are called to lead, to provide direction. Great. Okay, we'll address those people that have to follow us. Yeah. But where I'm really going, my brother, is that I am very concerned about our society. I mean, I will travel to other parts of the world, but I would love that we can fix our country ourselves. And I'm trying to herald people. But you may say, and don't make me, sound like a heathen to say, oh God, the problem, we've prayed now.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with our prayer. Even God is answering my prayer. I pray when I'm in trouble. Prayer works. But we need answers. We need to rise to the occasion. And that's where I'm really going. People need to be, and people are doing their best. You gave me an example, military. Fantastic. That was very heartwarming, honestly. And that made me keep quiet and think deeply about it, that there's something going on there. Or is it that we don't have a critical mass of these exceptional Daniels and Jan? Maybe they exist. But what I want to say, sir, is how do people watching this, young people, and I'm not addressing them, I don't want to use the word unbelievers. I'm not addressing people that are not of my faith, who are also great, excellent in their ways. I'm talking to people of my faith who have the Holy Spirit, but live in a country like Nigeria with so many problems.
Thank you very much, Tarfa. And I think we'll start discussing that offline. The first thing is recognizing that sense of calling. That sense of calling. Romans 12 was quite explicit. So we have different gifts. according to the grace given to each of us. Say, if your gift is prophesying, then prophesy. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, encourage. If it is giving, then give. If it is to lead, do so diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Some of the challenges that we had growing up was that sense that everybody had to be a pastor, had to be a minister, has to be an evangelist. It's not true. Some of us are called to leadership in the marketplace. Some of us are called to leadership in government. Some of us are called to administration. It is as important as being called to be a pastor, as a minister, which is what I encourage every church leader to tell their people. That some of you are called to be in government. Go and get the necessary education. Go and get the necessary expertise to lead in that space. Because we often get our worst folks in the public space. So there is insufficient preparation of the man, of the individual, of the woman who is supposed to lead in the marketplace. So what do you see? We get there, we bungle the entire thing. So every nation is built, every nation that is successful today was built by individuals that exalted the needs of others beyond their own personal and family needs. There's no other way. So, but how do you get that kind of individuals? They have to have some, some value systems that may not be normal. Those value systems has to be taught, codified, that how do you create a system where the poor in a country can be taken care of, and you pursue and establish that system. So there's a sense of calling you might be called. So I would like to speak to those who are called. I think that might be our objective today, to speak to those who are called. If this resonates with you, if kind of you love God, you are giving to the things of God, but you know that you will never be a minister or a pastor, but you want to make a difference in the marketplace. That's a Daniel spirit there. That's a Joseph spirit there. You have to attend to it. You have to give yourself to it. You have to do the research. You have to find people of similar company as yours. I remember as a university student, I met Professor Pastor Tommy. I was like, yeah, this is my man, When I heard him speak, when I read this book, I was like, yeah, this is my man. I saw someone that had a heart for development much bigger than I could ever imagine. And I latched onto that, and I drank from that water, testily. So you must find individuals that resonate with you and begin to build capacity, because you are very much needed. You are as much needed as a pastor. So please resonate. And for those of us in leadership in churches, find these individuals and encourage them to toe the right path. For example, you cannot be having everybody doing night vigil back to back. You're supposed to be reading, sometimes. So that balance of spirituality, academic development, mental development, is critical. If not, we will all be wasted eventually. Because don't forget, that's a reason why these gifts are given. And if the individuals who were supposed to give this gift did not rise, if Daniel did not rise, if Joseph did not rise, if Nehemiah did not rise, the people of God would have been wasted. So we all have our roles to play. Thank you, Tarfa.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dance. So people should respond to their calling. Let me share a quick story about my battle. When I was in university, I was hanging around pastors. I was even the pastor of the fellowship. But I had a very deep battle, internal battle. In fact, the thing used to give me heartache, where I was worried that God would call me to be a pastor. I was afraid of it. But I didn't realize that fear. So my fear was, I was afraid that God would call me and I will not respond. I felt like, and I told someone this, I think it was my wife, that, and this will sound strong, and please, what I'm about to say, I know this respectfully. I felt being a pastor will limit me. Now, I didn't do it, hold on, not to disregard. No, pastors are broad. They're big. They do great things. God uses them. But what I was trying to say was, and now I understand the issue when you don't have peace, what it means. I was trying to say that there is a lot more. So I still preach in church sometimes. I'm still giving platforms to talk. But I am a pastor in where I'm working. So sometimes I'm talking to my students who are probably in awe of my way of doing things in work, and I just deviate sometimes, and I go on a tangent, and I start dealing and hitting on life issues. And at that point, I'm like, which one do you prefer? To be a boss that will be coming to ask you out, God forbid, or to be a boss that is talking to you about things of God. Choose your extreme. So, I don't jokingly, I say choose your extreme.
Yes.
Or you want a boss that say, F you, get out of the place. Or you want a boss that was saying, teach you about standards of living and quality of thinking. And so, where I'm going with all this is, that was the battle I was fighting. Apparently, God was on my side. I thought he was coming for me.
Yeah.
You understand? So I struggled with it. Because you know why? Number one, I just finished school, so I was waiting to get posted to NYC. So I'll be there reading my Bible. I'll be there praying, asking God for wisdom. I'll be seeing revelation in the Bible. But I'm like, God, I don't want to be a pastor. Why am I seeing revelation? So I struggled. That was my challenge.
In fact, I had the same challenge.
Mine came with fear and I feel like I was.
I had the same challenge. I remember one particular time, had an encounter in a prayer meeting, and God told me that I've called into ministry. You know, I was like, as if I've lost something. So, but much later that night, the Holy Spirit told me that the ministry I've called it to is this ministry you're doing now, this ministry of marketplace ministry, and I was so happy. You know, now many people are in that same shoe. I think what do you tell that? I'll bring it back to you. What do you tell folks when?
So between me and you, the stories you just told now has set someone free.
Yes,
Somebody's having that battle and is thinking that, and you know what they do? They are not surrounded by men of God that cannot discern and say, no, dude, follow your. Do you understand? So I think the thing is, first of all, the priest and king, we've been taught that there's no dichotomy. The platform is what will change, whether it's a church or a bank. But in terms of the outcome, which has like two levels. Number one, the kingdom agenda, meaning what God will have you do, right? For his sake. Because God is sovereign. You know, sometimes we forget that God is not, it's like saying, like your dad. You can't go and tell your dad, oh, daddy, this is the direction of your life. No, your dad is the one. I mean, okay, your dad is not the perfect example. But where I'm going is, God is completely sovereign. We find ourselves in him. You don't have to be reminded that it's not our desires, quite all right? Depending on who gave us, whether it's his own or our own, right? Should be located in him.
True.
So it's like an estate, but you have your own house within the estate. So usually in the estate or side, now you can decide, okay, no, this house, I want to design my house with swimming pool, no problem. It's allowed within this estate.
Yeah.
So there are ultimate, boundaries of God's agenda that we have to. So where I'm going is, people will, number one priority is the kingdom, which is what I just said now. The number two is this social one that I went over in tangent with, which is the issue of how do we impact and change society, among other things. Now, Nelson, let's quickly digress. I want us to discuss pragmatic things. Nelson, you're not an economist. You're not a politician, but you have a lot of wisdom. I mean, my interaction with you. What trumpet are you going to blow using this platform to young people like you and I, ordinary people who are people from Plateau State, people from anywhere that is being terrorized, Zamfara? What kind of message? Nelson, what would you advise? Can you give solutions? I have mine. I'll share after you. What are the options? I'll get practical.
Okay.
Should they carry arms? What do we do?
Okay, I think that is quite a difficult question to try to attempt to answer now. However, there are many options available, but it's not that there's no one solution, but they all converge. So, for example, I am a firm believer that economic development is critical to security. In other words, people need to be able to afford the means for their development. So, for example, now, even if you say these people should have AK-47 now, they need to have money to afford it, right? So I'm not against people having guns, if there's a legal means to achieve that. We could have an exemption that people in terrorized areas where we don't have sufficient government presence should have guns. That can be passed by parliament. But if you pass that law or have a consensus where the government turns a blind eye, people still need to have money to afford it. That's number one. So economic development is important. Economic development is also an instrument for organization. So, because if all of us are poor, it's harder for us to organize ourselves. But if we are well off, it is easier to organize ourselves. So economic development is critical. So part of my goal is to figure out how do I help folks in those localities to do better. in their small agricultural, communities, how can they earn more money? Because the more money they earn, the more they have a vested interest to protect their communities. And they can now afford the means of that protection. That's number one. So we must solve the poverty challenge. Then number two is that land rights. What stops the government from issue? Because at the end of the day, this is about land. Let government issue CFOs to these communities over their lands, because they need to know that they own the land. So whether you come and kill 1 million people, this land is still in this community. Let people own the land, and if they own the land now, they can decide to give me a chunk of it, and I will import the soldiers. I don't know if you understand. So imagine if you own the land, if the community owns the land, they can sell the periphery of that land to third party who have the resources to secure it. So one, economic, at the end of the economic, and it's all about ownership. Let the individuals have their land. The government, the state governor is the one that has the right to issue CFOs. It doesn't need the federal government to do that. Issue CFOs to the communities. Encourage the communities to do deals with actors who can protect them. There are many people that you will give 1,000 hectares. They'll say, don't worry about security, we'll take care of it. Do you understand? Let's see the person that will come and attack us, So land ownership, economic, and then organization. Okay, because organization is critical. This is information, data. Those guys, they also are afraid of dying, right? They're also afraid of dying. It's the information that is available and how those information is managed that will determine the level of force they will see when they show up.
Amazing. Nelson, let me add. So I hear you and good points. Before I add, let me ask, or let me make my point now. You see what you just said now? Very sound. This is my style. Don't take it directly. In the entire cabinet, this quality of thinking, are you telling me it's not there? Now, no disrespect to the governors. Please don't get me wrong. What I'm saying, sir, is that there are people like you that should be in that place making such a... Now, whether there's sincerity of purpose to follow through is a different matter. Unfortunately, that's something we cannot answer. But, I believe it is. Listen to them. But I think, sir, this is what I've been trying to explain. You give me the meat I'm looking for, is that there is a dearth of thinking. When Joseph said, let's store up greed, there's a thinking. But sometimes it makes I'm glorifying man and wisdom, personal wisdom. Bible says, lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. I do that, but I also say that you just give practical solutions. I even have one radical one, sir. Hello, sir. When I explain something quickly, right? Plateau State is among the top 4 largest states in Nigeria. It's top 5. I checked I asked, ChatGPT, which one is the biggest? You believe that Lagos is last 5? FCT is one of the smallest. I know you know.
Yeah.
But the traveling like this road, you're like, because of development, right? Taraba, very large. These are like really, really large states. So some villages, my brother, is not more than 100 plots, and that's all they are. So you can come in and before anybody responds, and how many they're scattered. So maybe we need to sit down and say, guys, we will keep your ancestral land, but you won't live there. We now need to reassemble you people, which is what the Lagosians have done with some of these big families, that have sold Lekki land and turned the place. Maybe we need to speak to people, and their list. I wish we could edit it and put it out. There are Plateau people in Taraba. They are doing amazingly, especially Plateau people in different parts of the country and the world who are leading, who are feeling bad. Plateau people, you should come and engage a man like Nelson. And that's where now here's where I'm going, my brother. And this is where I'm going. And maybe I'm being a bit critical, and I'm not blaming anyone, but me, I know where I live. And that's why they think I'm glorifying my intelligence. No. It is that what you just said now is to be able to recognize. That's why I was telling someone the other day that God is too much. God did not... Okay, now I'm entering my elements. God did not... He gave Pharaoh the dream. We act sometimes like we do, and maybe this thing should not lead me into error. But he gave Pharaoh the dream because Pharaoh had the ability to execute. Pharaoh dreamed and he woke up and be like, I can't sleep. He followed through. Herod, and you're going to answer this question, and I have my theory. Herod, Jesus Christ was coming for goodness sake. Herod ordered the killing of plenty children. When we think that, no, how about Jesus, Prince of Peace? That's so unfair. I want to hear your opinion on that later on, but why? Jesus, no. Children shouldn't die for your sake. I want to imagine people like my mom with her compassion. Like, no. The pray we pray. Herod must die. Herod did not die. Jesus ran away instead. Joseph appeared to Joseph, carry again, run. Why? For me, it's the ways of God. We need to understand this is Jesus, for goodness sake. Angel was busy appearing, but angel could not smite Herod. No, something doesn't add up. In my opinion, this is one of my theories, and unfortunately, I don't have revelation to explain it. And I'll ask deep men of God one of these days. Herod, I went to go and dig up Herod. I went to go and read about Herod because there's rich Roman history. They say Herod was a state, like he was like a contract king. All those people like colonial people. And Herod was, now don't freak out, Herod was competent. He helped the Romans to consolidate their taxes and collections. He was tough. That toughness to kill people. He was ruthless. He was able to deliver. He was delivering. Pharaoh too was a deliverer. That's why, now I'm not promoting their evils, but what I'm going, because Pharaoh wasn't a nice guy. What I'm saying here, sir, is that, and my people of Jos, you are intelligent people, you are amazing people. I love you people. I only want to buy land there. I'll tell you about it shortly. There's one of these. But here's the thing, so I can have a country home. Here's the thing. You guys have to talk to people like Nelson. I'm not even so open to say, come, enough is enough. You need to sit down with these villagers and rearrange that place. Same for Taraba. Your lands are bigger than Israel. You guys can do agriculture. Oh my God. One example now. So I have a client. I don't know if you're feeling me. I have a client. This client is a client who is over 70. He's in the US. He was telling me about one of the states in the US. But let me say it, California. He said that he was in politics. He's a Christian. He said when he wanted to, sat down and said, you know what, this was in the 70s or 60s or 70s, he said, or 80s. This California, we want to make it. They took California out of US in thinking. And they said they were going to, he told me the story on the phone, they were going to convert California into an economic powerhouse. Apparently, they drew up the plan that got California to be one of the top 10 largest economies in the world. So California, a state, is bigger than some countries, including Nigeria, in GDP. California, we know what he said. He said, we're going to get all our industries, everything in California, we're going to find markets for them. So they went around the world. They went around the world to look for markets. Look at that's how to solve our problem. And these are the things that keep me awake. So when I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about to number one, you talk about this land rights, but I think we need to rearrange communities. And we need to explain that, okay, you have to leave your ancestral home. I'm sorry. But we will know, we'll map it and we'll keep it for you. Number two, and last point before you come in, and I'll come back again, is that, you see, for areas where we rearrange high towers, snipers. I know I'm still like you're not a soldier. Yes, sniper from the top. Bang, bang, because you know that whole, you build out a defense. So you come up with models, depending on the size of the community. So you modularize security, perimeter fencing, levels of alert, and then booby traps. Like the list is endless. I know I sound like Hollywood.
The truth is that once there's a will and people are willing to deploy the right knowledge, you can achieve anything. And as to your question about Herod and Pharaoh and all that, I think God has made a world where he has put humans in charge. As funny as it is, you just have to accept it. Which is why a lot of people kind of have come to the conclusion that there's no God. Because God did it in such a way that humans are, in a way, absolutely in charge. Which is why you have to respond to your calling. Because there's nothing else. If you think about it critically, it's just you. Because that's the point. God has made a world where if you don't respond to it, nothing's going to happen. That's how he has made it. It's a hard reality. And if other folks respond to it, C.S. Lewis gave me a perfect analogy. He said, God made a world where we are spirits, but we live in bodies, right? And he said in that world, if not the fact that if God allowed us to be able to mingle, so it means that Tarfa can be here, and I'm still at the same space with Tarfa. That God made it the way that nature cannot be at two places at the same time. So in other words, Because nature cannot be at two places at the same time. If I hit you with a wood, it's either your head remains or the wood breaks. Do you understand? Or your head breaks. But they cannot be at the same space at the same time. So in other words, evil is not possible. Because the same wood that can help you sit down, if you hit it on somebody's head, to break the person's head. So because of that, at war, the person that wins the war is not the more righteous person. It's the person that knows how to use the wood more. Do you get? So in other words, automatically, no matter how good your intentions are, you have to know how to use the wood. If not, you will lose the war. So your prayer is not only to God protect me, but God teach me how to use the wood or how to use the metal, because he has made that word possible. So when you pray that prayer, God is more likely to listen to you because you are responding to him within the constraints he has already created. So if I go to school, I'm not saying, God, help me, let me pass. God, let me pass. No, I say, God, help me to understand the taught material, because the examination will come from this taught material. God will help you. But to close your eyes and say, God, just help me. So think about it, nation building. What do you need? You need to have elected people in office to do the right thing. That means you need to run for office. Abi? You need to mobilize people. You need to mobilize people on the street. There's no other way to do that. To join political parties, you must join political parties. If you don't do all that and you are praying, your prayer is futile. So, like what you described about California, going to find markets, that is the only way to grow an economy. Somebody must buy your products and services, and you must find a market for that. Don't sit and pray about it. You pray that God will give you grace to do it. So the right understanding of nature is important. That God made a world where you and I are the only agents for his influence. And because of that, in a way, he has sort of limited himself to you, which is why the parable of the talents is very, very instructive. Why did he have to give them the talents? Why? Think about it. Is it that he needed them to multiply things? That he's so, what do you call it now? He's so deficient in himself that he needed to multiply things? No. Because remember what that guy told him, the guy, they wanted that guy said that, I know you. You reap where you don't sow. Do you understand? The person was basically saying that, I know that you use us to achieve your objective. You get? I know that you are a person that uses us. You are using us. So the person has seen that this master is a master that does things through third parties. And the person is basically saying, I refuse to be used of you. I say, you don't want me to use you, I will deal with you. That's how God is. Nigeria is a mess. And God said, I want to use you. And you're saying, God helps you, you do it to yourself. God is saying, you're a wicked man. You have refused for me to use you to achieve my objective. And that's the issue we are facing in this country, because we have a set of people who are asking God to come and do what he has asked us to do. That God, they're basically saying that you're a harsh God. You have put a word where you want me to act. That's what we're saying. That God, you made a word where you want me to do the hard job. And why must I do it? And God is saying that's wickedness. You are wicked. Because to him, why he says you are wicked is that he has given you everything. He has given you everything. It's just like, you bought a child, you bought a car, you oil the car, you put fuel in the car, you put everything. That's it, the car starts. The car refuses to start. You trash it. So God has given us everything to function, and he is appalled, angry when we don't, which is why we keep saying, call him. If God has called you, it is not a suggestion. It's not like, oh, if you like it, if you want it, if you're happy about it. It's a command. A command. He almost killed Moses. Moses, it's as if God was pleading with Moses, go now, when he eventually began to go, God almost killed him on the way. You'll be wondering, After all, this guy went because you convinced him. God does not like act like that. His convincing is not really a convincing. His convincing is a recruitment. So, but we love him because he is asking us to do what is good. And he has called us to respond to him. So please do so.